"You're not qualified for this mission." Major Richard Thompson's voice boomed across the Tactical Operations Center at Forward Operating Base Sentinel. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez stood frozen as the room full of intelligence officers fell silent, all eyes on her. "Women like you belong in logistics, not calling in airstrikes," he added with a dismissive wave. Someone snickered as Thompson turned back to the mission board. For a moment, Maya's sleeve shifted, revealing a small distinctive patch, one that only a select few would recognize. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she took a measured breath. They had just underestimated the wrong intelligence officer. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." I wonder where you're watching this story unfold from today. Whatever corner of America you're in, you've probably witnessed someone being underestimated before. Perhaps you're in a bustling city like Chicago or a quiet town in Montana. Or maybe you're viewing from the coastal roads of Oregon. Wherever you are, I'm sure you've seen the look of surprise when someone proves their doubters wrong. But rarely does it happen quite like this. Maya Rodriguez had always been a woman of few words. At 32, her slender frame and quiet demeanor often led people to underestimate her. She lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Fort Braxton, the kind with thin walls and a small balcony just big enough for a single chair. It wasn't much, but it was enough for her and the collection of commendations she kept in a simple wooden box at the bottom of her footlocker. 6 years had passed since she'd completed the Army's Advanced Geospatial Intelligence course, one of the first women to graduate at the top of her class. 6 years since she decided to specialize in a field dominated by men twice her age. These days, Maya worked as an intelligence analyst with the 75th Expeditionary Operations Group, helping coordinate missions and identify targets. Her colleagues respected her attention to detail and her methodical approach to data analysis. What they didn't know was that her understanding came not just from classroom training, but from years of intensive fieldwork in some of the most hostile regions on Earth. Maya had made a conscious choice to take a step back from field operations, to build something new without the constant pressure and intensity that came with forward deployment. The specialized course insignia she'd earned remained tucked away. In her personal effects, a private reminder of who she had been and what she could do. 2 years ago, Maya's mentor, Colonel Elaine Winters, had been killed when her convoy hit an IED in northern Afghanistan. A pioneer in military intelligence, she had been Maya's inspiration, her guide, and her fiercest advocate throughout her career. Her absence left a void that Maya struggled to fill. For months after the memorial service, she would spend hours poring over satellite imagery and topographical maps, analyzing terrain features and identifying potential ambush points. It was her form of meditation, of connecting with her mentor's memory. She kept Colonel Winter's challenge coin in her pocket at all times, a tangible link to the woman who had taught her that precision and patience were more powerful than brute force or battlefield glory. The idea to volunteer for frontline intelligence operations came from a fellow analyst who noticed Maya's exceptional work during a training exercise. "You know," said Lieutenant James Chun during a late-night shift, "with your eye for terrain analysis, you'd probably excel in tactical operations." It might be a good way to honor Colonel Winter's legacy. Maya had laughed it off initially, but the suggestion took root. She began studying advanced targeting procedures, practicing coordinate plotting in various conditions, slowly building confidence in this specialized skill. There was something appealing about the challenge, about proving to herself that she could adapt and grow while honoring the skills Colonel Winters had helped her develop. After months of additional training, Maya requested a transfer to the Tactical Operations Team. Forward Operating Base Sentinel had a reputation for running some of the most critical missions in the region, and their intelligence unit was considered elite. It wasn't until her second week that she encountered Major Richard Thompson, the base's senior intelligence officer and the commander's trusted advisor. Thompson had built a respected career with 15 years of service and multiple combat deployments. He'd cultivated a reputation as the go-to officer for high-risk operations and had the ear of every commander in the region. He was used to having his assessments accepted without question, to having junior officers defer to his expertise, and established team members acknowledge his authority. Maya's quiet competence and quick learning curve had not gone unnoticed, and not in a good way. The morning of their first confrontation, Maya had arrived early to analyze new satellite imagery of a suspected insurgent supply route. She wore her standard-issue uniform, her dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun. Nothing about her appearance suggesting her specialized training or the years of analytical expertise that had shaped her mind and skills. She was just another new face in a unit full of experienced officers and intelligence specialists. Thompson and his inner circle entered the operations center like a small parade, their confident voices and authoritative energy filling the space. Maya continued her work, focusing on the elevation patterns and natural choke points until Thompson deliberately leaned over her workstation. "Sorry, didn't see you there," he said with a smirk that suggested otherwise. "We need this terminal for actual mission planning." His colleagues snickered, already forming a semicircle around the interaction. Maya stepped back, no desire for confrontation clouding her features. "No problem, sir," she said, moving to gather her notes. As she reached for her data tablet, Thompson picked it up first. "Nice effort for a rookie," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "But this isn't a training exercise. We're tracking real targets here. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." He set her tablet down at an empty desk across the room, more laughter following as Maya quietly retrieved it and left the area, feeling the eyes of everyone in the operations center following her retreat. That first encounter set the tone for what became an escalating pattern of dismissal and exclusion. "He does this to every woman who gets assigned here," explained Captain Andrea Mitchell as they ate in the mess hall. "Either you're eye candy for him and his buddies, or you're a target." The warning did little to prepare Maya for the systematic campaign that followed. In the days and weeks that came, she found herself subjected to a multi-layered gauntlet of humiliation designed to drive her away. It began with the team members themselves, many of whom took their social cues from Thompson. When Maya provided analysis during briefings, her insights were either dismissed as obvious or questioned extensively. During training exercises, her calculations would be double-checked while male analysts' work was accepted without verification. In the barracks, she overheard comments about her age, her build, and her background, the diversity hire, and not cut out for real intelligence work. A group of senior analysts who regularly worked the same shift would cluster together, leaving Maya isolated. Even those who seemed sympathetic remained silent witnesses, unwilling to challenge the unit's established hierarchy. "Just request a transfer before it gets worse," one woman advised her quietly. "That's what I'm doing. It's not worth the stress." Thompson and his inner circle elevated the harassment to an art form. When Maya submitted targeting assessments, Thompson would publicly critique her methodology, applying standards he didn't demand from others. His friends created practical obstacles, accidentally deleting her work from shared drives, taking equipment she had reserved, deliberately excluding her from crucial briefings. They nicknamed her Princess, despite her combat zone experience. And the name caught on throughout the operations center. During training simulations, Thompson would assign Maya impossible scenarios, setting her up for public failure. "That's all you've got?" he would ask loudly when she struggled. "Maybe try the public affairs office next door." The base command, influenced by Thompson's stellar reputation, provided no refuge. Maya's first complaint to the deputy commander. Major Simmons was dismissed with a shrug. "That's just how intelligence officers are," he said, barely looking up from his reports. "If you can't handle a little professional criticism, this probably isn't the place for you." During briefings, senior officers gave her minimal attention, focusing instead on Thompson's assessments or those of his favorite analysts. The personnel office accidentally left her name off the duty roster twice, causing her to miss important mission preparations. When she pointed out the error, the clerk suggested with thinly veiled contempt that maybe the motor pool needs help with their paperwork. The humiliation extended beyond the base's operational areas. When Maya attempted to join secure communications channels for mission planning, her access requests were delayed or denied. Her applications to participate in advanced targeting courses were rejected, citing experience requirements that seemed selectively applied. At tactical planning sessions, seasoned operators dismissed her terrain analyses, though the same points would be praised when repeated by male analysts minutes later. The situation reached a new low when a visiting general came to evaluate the unit's performance. The resulting assessment included a photo of Maya struggling with a complex targeting calculation during a stress test, captured at her most vulnerable moment. The internal memo never mentioned her by name, but used her image as the face of integration challenges affecting unit readiness. The memo circulated widely within regional command, accumulating dozens of comments and annotations. Worse still, some of Maya's previous colleagues saw the piece, leading to awkward questions about her competence and suitability for tactical operations. Through it all, Maya maintained her composure, showing up consistently for duty and continuing to improve, despite the hostile environment. In private moments, she would touch Colonel Winter's challenge coin and remember her advice: "Let them underestimate you. That's when you have the advantage." She focused on her analytical skills, studied satellite imagery at night, and made incremental progress that went largely unnoticed by those determined to see her fail. Each humiliation became fuel, each obstacle a chance to demonstrate the mental toughness that had once made her an exceptional analyst. She wasn't fighting for recognition anymore. She was fighting for the right to define her own path without intimidation or judgment. One Friday evening, after a particularly grueling shift where Thompson had singled her out for criticism, Maya lingered in the empty operations center, carefully studying newly arrived intelligence on suspected enemy movements. She moved through a series of complex calculations with fluid precision, her mind clearing of the day's frustrations as she focused solely on the terrain and the mathematical patterns emerging from her analysis. She didn't notice Colonel James Harrington, the base commander, observing from the doorway until he cleared his throat. "You're getting pretty good at this," he said, surprising her with what might have been his first direct acknowledgement of her work. "Been watching your analyses these past few weeks. You've got unusual precision for someone new to tactical operations." Maya nodded her thanks, uncertain how to respond to this unexpected recognition. Colonel Harrington stepped further into the room, his usual commanding presence softened by the late hour. "You know we're deploying a critical mission next week," he said. "High-value target crossing through Sector 7. Might be a good opportunity to test your skills in a real operation." There was something in his tone that Maya couldn't quite identify, a mixture of curiosity and assessment. "I'll prepare, sir," she replied, though the idea of contributing to such a high-profile operation under Thompson's scrutiny held little appeal. Harrington nodded and turned to leave, then paused. "Major Thompson can be intense," he said, choosing his words carefully. "The pressure of combat operations gets into some people's heads in unhealthy ways. Just so you know, it's not personal." But it had become personal, as Maya discovered the following day when she arrived to find her name on the mission roster, assigned to the targeting team for Operation Shadow Strike. Thompson stood nearby with his usual entourage, his expression transforming into a predatory smile when he noticed her confusion. "Heard you volunteered for Shadow Strike," he called across the room, drawing attention from everyone present. The colonel mentioned it. Brave move for a rookie. He sauntered over, invading her personal space with deliberate intimidation. "Try not to get anyone killed with your coordinates," he said, voice lowered but still audible to those nearby. "Some operations aren't training exercises. Wouldn't want you to have deaths on your conscience trying to prove something." The statement hung in the air, a public challenge that demanded a response. Maya looked him directly in the eyes, something she rarely did with anyone on the base. "I'll be ready, sir," she said simply before moving past him toward her workstation. The exchange sparked a wave of whispered conversations and speculative glances. Thompson's friends doubled down on their harassment in the days that followed, as if determined to break her resolve before the operation could test their leader's authority. Rumors circulated that Thompson had manipulated the mission parameters to ensure newcomers, particularly Maya, would fail spectacularly. Despite the intimidation campaign, Maya continued her preparation with renewed focus. The mission had given her something concrete to work toward, a defined goal that harkened back to her days under Colonel Winter's mentorship. In quiet pre-dawn sessions before her shift and late evenings after hours, she refined her analytical techniques and built her confidence. In her quarters, she reviewed topographical data and weather patterns for the target area, studying the terrain until she could visualize every ridge and valley with her eyes closed. When the weekend before the operation arrived, she made an unplanned video call to a former instructor from the Advanced Geospatial Intelligence course, seeking advice on accounting for seasonal wind patterns in the target region. Away from prying eyes, she refreshed the advanced calculation techniques that had once set her apart during her specialized training. "This is for you, Colonel," she whispered as she finalized her preparation notes, feeling more centered than she had in months. The day of Operation Shadow Strike arrived with an electric tension running through the base. The pre-dawn briefing drew the entire tactical team to the operations center, where maps and satellite imagery covered every available surface. Intelligence reports confirmed that a high-value target, a senior insurgent commander responsible for numerous attacks on coalition forces, would be moving through a narrow mountain pass with minimal protection, creating a rare opportunity for interception. Maya arrived early wearing the same standard-issue uniform she always wore, her hair tied back neatly, no unnecessary equipment or flashy accessories to draw attention. She took her position at the targeting station quietly and began her pre-mission checks with methodical precision. Thompson made his entrance 15 minutes later, surrounded by his inner circle, wearing a tactical vest emblazoned with multiple unit patches from previous deployments. He made a show of not seeing Maya, though his gaze swept past her location several times as he greeted team members and distributed last-minute assignments. Colonel Harrington began the briefing with a somber reminder of the mission's importance and the narrow window of opportunity they faced. The target would be moving through the designated area for less than 30 minutes, with only one chance to coordinate the strike before he disappeared back into heavily protected territory. "This operation has been months in planning," he emphasized. "We cannot afford errors in execution." All eyes turned to the large tactical display as the mission parameters were reviewed one final time. The mountainous terrain made this operation particularly challenging. Steep valleys created unpredictable wind patterns, and the narrow roads limited approach options for both the target and the strike team. Thompson stepped forward, commanding the room's attention as he outlined his recommended targeting solution. His confidence was absolute as he designated primary and secondary strike zones, based on his previous experience in similar terrain. "The target will be most vulnerable here," he indicated, pointing to a section of road visible on the satellite imagery. "We'll have approximately 20 seconds to execute once visual confirmation is established." His assessment drew approving nods from senior officers. The planning phase concluded with assignment confirmations. Thompson would oversee the operation from the command post, while Maya and 2 other analysts would provide real-time targeting support from the operations center. As the team dispersed to their positions, Thompson passed by Maya's station. "Try to keep up, Princess," he said, just loud enough for nearby personnel to hear. "Just follow my lead and don't try to get creative." Maya made no response, focusing instead on calibrating her equipment as the mission clock began its countdown. The operation began precisely on schedule. Surveillance drones took position over the target area, feeding live imagery to the operations center. Field teams reported ready status from their concealed positions along the likely route. Thompson maintained constant communication from the command post, his voice authoritative as he directed resources and confirmed positions. 30 minutes into the mission, the first reports came in. The target convoy had been spotted entering the surveillance zone, moving faster than anticipated and with more vehicles than intelligence had indicated. The original plan began to strain under these unexpected developments. "They've split into 2 groups," reported a drone operator. "Primary target appears to be in the second convoy, moving north through the eastern valley." Thompson's voice came through immediately. "Maintain focus on the original coordinates. They're trying to confuse us with a decoy." Maya studied the live feed intently, something catching her attention that others had missed. The vehicle patterns, the dust signatures, the way the second convoy navigated the terrain. Something wasn't matching the intelligence profile. She pulled up historical satellite imagery, comparing movement patterns from previous sightings. "Sir," she said into her headset, addressing the mission commander directly rather than going through Thompson, "I believe the target may actually be in the first convoy. The second group's movement pattern doesn't match his security detail's typical formation." Thompson's response was immediate and dismissive. "Stick to your assignment, Lieutenant. This isn't the time for speculation." Maya persisted, her voice calm but insistent. "The terrain in the eastern valley creates a distinctive dust pattern with multiple vehicles. What we're seeing matches a deliberate attempt to mimic that signature." Colonel Harrington's voice cut through the channel. "What are you suggesting, Lieutenant Rodriguez?" Maya took a deep breath, knowing her next words could either salvage the mission or end her career. "Sir, I believe they're using our own intelligence against us. Historical data shows the target always travels in the less conspicuous convoy. The second group is deliberately drawing our attention with signature behaviors we expect to see. I recommend redirecting surveillance to the first convoy and recalculating strike coordinates for the western approach." A tense silence followed. Thompson broke it with a barely contained fury. "This is exactly why rookies shouldn't be on critical missions. We're losing our window while she second-guesses established intelligence." Colonel Harrington made his decision. "Give me options, Lieutenant, quickly." Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard, calculations and terrain analysis merging into a precise targeting solution. The entire operations center watched as she worked, the silence broken only by the steady updates from field teams reporting the convoy's continued movement. "Coordinates transmitted, sir," she announced, sending her calculations to the command post. "If I'm right, the target will reach this intersection in approximately 3 minutes. The terrain provides optimal conditions for interdiction with minimal collateral risk." Colonel Harrington made the call. "Redirect surveillance to the western convoy. Prepare to execute on Lieutenant Rodriguez's coordinates." Thompson's protests were cut short as the surveillance feed confirmed movement exactly where Maya had predicted. The lead vehicle in the first convoy suddenly accelerated, breaking formation in a classic security reaction to sensing danger. "Visual confirmation," reported the drone operator. "Target identified in second vehicle, western convoy." "Execute," ordered Colonel Harrington. What happened next occurred with precision and speed. The strike hit exactly as calculated, the timing perfect as the convoy entered the narrow pass Maya had identified. The operation was over in seconds, clean, precise, with no civilian casualties and complete mission success. The operations center erupted in controlled celebration as confirmation came through. The high-value target had been neutralized, ending a 3-year manhunt for one of the region's most dangerous insurgent leaders. In the midst of the professional acknowledgments and relief, Maya sat quietly at her station, methodically saving her calculations and completing her mission documentation. She made no attempt to join the congratulatory circles forming around the room, no effort to highlight her crucial role in the operation's success. It was Colonel Harrington who brought attention to her contribution, stepping into the operations center with an unusually wide smile. "Outstanding work today," he announced to the assembled team before turning specifically to Maya. Lieutenant Rodriguez's analysis made the difference between success and failure. That's the kind of precision thinking that saves lives and completes missions. The room's reaction swelled as people realized the critical role the quiet lieutenant had played. Phones emerged to capture the moment for after-action reports, and curious officers looked at Maya with newfound respect. Thompson pushed through the crowd, avoiding attention as he disappeared toward the command post. Maya found herself surrounded by tactical team members, fielding questions about her analytical approach and terrain assessment techniques. She answered politely but briefly, uncomfortable with the sudden attention after months of deliberate anonymity. In the days that followed, Maya's status at Forward Operating Base Sentinel underwent a dramatic transformation. Officers who had previously ignored her sought her out for advice on targeting protocols and terrain analysis. Women on the base specifically approached her after shifts, sharing their own stories of dismissal and asking for guidance. The regional command that had circulated the unflattering assessment now distributed a commendation highlighting exceptional analytical skills that directly contributed to mission success. Colonel Harrington offered her a permanent position with the elite targeting team and mentioned a potential recommendation for the Advanced Tactical Intelligence course. Thompson's usual commanding presence diminished noticeably. His social media accounts, normally filled with operational commentary and tactical discussions, went conspicuously quiet as comments about his missed assessment and Maya's successful targeting solution circulated among intelligence communities. Maya found herself at a crossroads she hadn't anticipated. Intelligence agencies reached out with recruitment offers. Special operations units suggested advisory roles, and tactical training centers proposed instructor positions. Paths she had deliberately set aside suddenly reopened, presenting routes back to the world she had stepped away from after Colonel Winter's death. After careful consideration, she declined most offers but accepted an expanded role at the base, developing a practical targeting program focused on integrating terrain analysis with tactical planning. Her focus, she decided, would be on creating standardized protocols that would improve mission success rates and reduce unnecessary risks, particularly for forward-deployed units. Thompson's presence in the operations center became increasingly rare in the weeks that followed. When he did appear, he moved through the space with little of his former swagger, keeping interactions brief and professional. Maya noticed the change but made no effort to approach him, respecting his process and focusing on her own responsibilities. It was Thompson who eventually bridged the gap, appearing at the door of the analysis room where she was reviewing data from a recent operation. "Got a minute?" he asked, his voice lacking its characteristic authority. Maya nodded, continuing to organize reports as he stepped inside. "I've been doing some thinking," he began awkwardly, "about how I behaved toward you and others on the team." He paused, clearly struggling with the unfamiliar territory of acknowledging mistakes. "Colonel Harrington made it clear that what I did crossed several lines, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here because you had every reason to let me fail. That day, to let me make the wrong call and take the fall for it. And instead, you put the mission first. That means something." Maya set down the file she'd been organizing and gave him her full attention. "That wasn't my goal," she said simply. Thompson nodded, looking at the floor. "I know that now. It made me realize I've been so focused on maintaining my reputation that I forgot what real intelligence work is about. The people I surrounded myself with, they disappeared the minute I wasn't the star analyst anymore. Made me think about who I've been and what I've been building." He finally met her eyes, genuine emotion breaking through his carefully maintained facade. "Anyway, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for all of it. And I'd understand if you wanted me to request a transfer to another base." Maya considered him for a moment before responding. "This was your team long before it was mine," she said. "I'm not interested in pushing anyone out. That's not why I came here." She picked up a terrain analysis from a recent mission. "You know, I noticed an anomaly in the elevation data from the last operation. If you're interested, I could use another perspective on whether it represents a pattern we should be tracking." The offer hung between them, a potential bridge across a chasm of their own making. After a moment's hesitation, Thompson nodded, a small but genuine smile breaking through his uncertainty. What began as a tentative professional exchange evolved over the following weeks into a respectful collaborative relationship. Thompson's years of field experience complemented Maya's analytical approach, while her methodical precision enhanced his strategic planning. The dynamic between them transformed the intelligence unit's culture as well. Thompson's former inner circle drifted away, replaced by serious professionals drawn to the more focused operational environment. New analysts, particularly women who might have been intimidated in the past, joined in growing numbers, attracted by Maya's reputation and the unit's evolving culture of technical excellence rather than personality-driven leadership. For Maya, the experience brought unexpected healing. She began wearing Colonel Winter's challenge coin openly, no longer hiding that part of her history. She spoke more freely about her specialized training when asked, though never boastfully. Elements of her advanced analytical techniques became integrated into the unit's standard procedures, not as war stories but as practical methods for improving mission outcomes. Occasionally, she would invite interested team members to join her for specialized training sessions, introducing them to the terrain visualization and pattern recognition that had shaped her approach to intelligence work. Several, including Thompson, discovered a new depth to their practice, creating a core group of exceptional analysts within the unit. 3 months after Operation Shadow Strike, Forward Operating Base Sentinel hosted a tactical intelligence symposium, featuring its new comprehensive targeting methodology. The event drew attention from multiple military branches and intelligence agencies, all interested in the remarkable improvements in operational success and reduction in collateral risks. Maya led a key presentation, her confidence and expertise evident in every word as she guided senior officers through a series of case studies, demonstrating the effectiveness of integrated terrain analysis. Her briefing included contributions from across the intelligence team, including Thompson, who now focused on mentoring newer analysts rather than dominating the spotlight. As the symposium concluded to enthusiastic reviews, a young lieutenant approached Maya with visible admiration. "Is it true you calculated those strike coordinates in less than 2 minutes?" she asked, eyes wide. "My instructor at Fort Huachuca told us about your work on Operation Shadow Strike. That's incredible precision under pressure." Maya smiled, her hand unconsciously moving to touch Colonel Winter's challenge coin, which she now wore openly on a chain around her neck. "I had excellent training," she acknowledged simply. "But that's not the most important part of what we do." The lieutenant persisted, curious about Maya's journey and apparent transformation of the unit. "How did you go from being dismissed as a rookie to changing an entire tactical operation with one analysis? That's such an inspiring story." Maya looked around at the community that had formed around her, at the space that had transitioned from a source of pain to a place of growth and excellence. Some battles are won not with force, she said thoughtfully, but with precision and integrity. That lesson applies everywhere, not just in tactical operations. She watched as Thompson guided a group of new analysts through a complex terrain. Assessment, his instruction patient and detailed. Sometimes the strongest statement isn't dominating someone else, she continued. It's refusing to let them dictate who you are or what you're capable of becoming. Colonel Harrington approached, clapping a hand on Maya's shoulder with newfound respect. We've got requests from 3 more forward operating bases wanting to implement your targeting methodology, he said, excitement evident in his voice. Could be the start of something significant for the entire region. Maya nodded, appreciating his enthusiasm without fully sharing it. Her goals remained modest, creating a space where analytical skills were valued over intimidation, where precision and respect took precedence over posturing and exclusion. The expansion of her influence was a welcome side effect, not her primary motivation. Later that evening, after the visitors had departed and the base had quieted, Maya found herself alone in the operations center, going through a series of calculations that blended her specialized training with her newer teaching approach. The space felt different now, no longer hostile territory to be navigated cautiously, but a place where she belonged on her own terms. She had not sought vindication or revenge, had not set out to change the unit's culture or Thompson's attitude. She had simply refused to be defined by others' limitations or expectations. The rest had followed naturally, like the perfect execution of an operation planned with precision and patience. Outside the windows, the desert night spread vast and clear, stars tracing patterns across the sky like coordinates on a map. Maya thought about all the personnel on the base, carrying hidden chapters of their own stories, veterans with specialized skills, quiet professionals with extraordinary pasts, unassuming service members with exceptional capabilities. Her story was just one among thousands, notable perhaps only in its momentary visibility. Tomorrow, someone else's hidden strength would be revealed. Someone else's patience would be rewarded. Someone else's precision would make the difference between success and failure. The quietest people often carry the most powerful stories. Here in America and on bases around the world, we sometimes forget that everyone has hidden chapters we can't see. The woman processing your paperwork might be an elite intelligence analyst. The quiet man in the mess hall could have saved dozens of lives with his technical expertise. The unassuming lieutenant might have skills that can change the course of critical operations. If you were Maya, would you have forgiven those who dismissed you, or would you have walked away? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become part of our Everyday Heroes community, where we celebrate quiet competence, real challenges, and unexpected victories. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world. Maya's background went far deeper than anyone at Forward Operating Base Sentinel suspected. Born to immigrant parents in a small town outside of San Antonio, Texas, Maya Rodriguez had learned early about both perseverance and invisibility. Her father, a former Mexican military officer who had become a U.S. citizen, instilled in her a deep respect for service and precision. Her mother, a mathematics professor, taught her that numbers never lie, even when people do. The modest home where she grew up featured a small study converted into what her father called the war room, walls covered with maps, shelves lined with military history books, and a large table where he would set up tactical scenarios using chess pieces and plastic soldiers. By age 10, Maya could identify terrain advantages on any topographical map. By 14, she could calculate artillery trajectories in her head faster than most trained gunners. Intelligence wins before the first shot is fired, her father would tell her during their weekend strategy sessions. The warrior who knows the battlefield before arriving already stands on higher ground. These days, Maya lived in a sparsely furnished one-bedroom apartment near Fort Braxton, the kind with standard-issue furniture and walls too thin to hang much of anything. The only personal touches were a small collection of antique maps framed above her desk and the wooden box containing Colonel Winter's personal effects that her family had insisted Maya should have. The box held photographs, service medals, and handwritten notes from operations they had served on together, memories of the woman who had seen Maya's potential when others saw only a quiet Hispanic woman trying to enter a field dominated by men who looked nothing like her. Finding her way in military intelligence hadn't been easy. At university, Maya had double majored in geographic information systems and applied mathematics, graduating with honors and immediately applying to officer candidate school. Her technical skills had been exceptional, but the military's culture presented challenges her academic excellence couldn't overcome. During her initial training, male candidates frequently assumed she was there to fulfill some diversity quota. Instructors often paired her with struggling male candidates, expecting her to fail alongside them. Study groups formed without invitations extended her way. The message was clear: she didn't belong in the world of military intelligence. Then came a pivotal night exercise, a simulated intelligence operation, where teams had to identify enemy positions from limited satellite data and coordinate a theoretical strike. When her assigned team dismissed her input, Maya quietly completed her own analysis. As the exercise concluded with most teams identifying only 60 to 70% of targets, Maya's solo assessment had pinpointed 94%, a record that still stood at the training center. That performance caught Colonel Elaine Winter's attention. The decorated intelligence officer had been observing the exercise and requested Maya for a specialized training program she was developing, the Advanced Geospatial Intelligence course. That would become Maya's launching point into a world few women had entered. "You have a gift," Colonel Winters told her during their first meeting. "You see patterns others miss because you approach problems differently. That's not a weakness. It's exactly what intelligence work needs." Under Winters' mentorship, Maya flourished. The colonel became not just a superior officer, but a guide through the complicated landscape of military hierarchy. She taught Maya when to speak up and when strategic silence served better, how to present findings so they would be heard rather than dismissed, and most importantly, how to maintain confidence when faced with doubt and derision. "There will always be people who underestimate you," Winters had told her during a particularly difficult training rotation. "Let them. Your job isn't to convince everyone of your worth. It's to deliver results that speak for themselves." Their professional relationship deepened into friendship over shared deployments and critical operations. When Maya received her first major commendation for analytical work that prevented an ambush of a diplomatic convoy, it was Colonel Winters who pinned the medal on her uniform. "Remember this moment," Winters had whispered. "Not because of the recognition, but because lives were saved by your mind, not someone's physical strength or bravado." The loss of Colonel Winters hit Maya with the force of physical trauma. The IAD that took her mentor's life had been on a route Maya herself had analyzed just weeks earlier. Though the official investigation cleared her of any oversight, the explosive had been planted after her assessment. Maya carried the weight of wondering if she could have somehow predicted the vulnerability. In the months after the funeral, she retreated into herself, requesting a transfer from field operations to a training position at Fort Braxton. Her superiors, concerned about her psychological state, approved the move without question. For 18 months, she taught basic intelligence procedures to new recruits, her exceptional skills utilized at only a fraction of their capacity. The grief might have permanently derailed her career had it not been for a chance encounter with James Chun, a fellow intelligence officer who had worked with Colonel Winters years earlier. Assigned temporarily to Fort Braxton, He recognized Maya's name from Winter's frequent mentions. "She talked about you constantly," Chun told Maya over coffee in the base canteen. "Said you were the future of intelligence work, someone who could revolutionize how we analyze terrain and predict enemy movements." Maya had smiled politely, assuming he was just being kind to his late colleague's protege. "I'm serious," Chun insisted, seeing her skepticism. "Elaine believed you had a unique spatial reasoning ability, something she called topographical intuition. She was documenting your methods before her death." The revelation stunned Maya. She had known Colonel Winters respected her work, but hadn't realized the extent of her mentor's faith in her abilities. "The last time we spoke," Chun continued, "she mentioned wanting you for a specialized targeting unit she was proposing to command. Said conventional approaches were failing because they lacked the precision someone with your skills could provide." That conversation awakened something in Maya that grief had buried. If Colonel Winters had believed so strongly in her potential, didn't she owe it to her mentor's memory to fulfill it? The comfort of her training position suddenly felt like betrayal of everything Winters had seen in her. The decision to return to operational intelligence came with significant personal cost. Maya's longtime boyfriend, a civilian contractor who had supported her through the worst of her grief, couldn't understand her choice to return to the field. "You were finally sleeping through the night," he argued during their last conversation. "Why go back to something that nearly broke you?" His inability to understand that purpose sometimes requires discomfort ultimately ended their 3-year relationship. The night before her transfer to Forward Operating Base Sentinel, Maya packed her belongings into 2 standard-issue duffels, left the key to their shared apartment on the kitchen counter, and drove away without looking back. On her first day at FOB Sentinel, Maya stopped at the base memorial, a simple stone marker listing names of those lost during operations. Colonel Winters' name, added 18 months earlier, still looked fresher than those weathered longer by desert winds. Maya placed her hand on the engraving, feeling the sharp edges of the letters against her palm. "I'm back," she whispered. "I'll make it count this time." Her resolve would be tested sooner and more severely than she anticipated. The antagonism from Major Richard Thompson began almost immediately, a systematic campaign to undermine her confidence and question her competence at every turn. Thompson had built his reputation through conventional intelligence methods and aggressive self-promotion. A natural politician within military circles, he cultivated relationships with senior officers and managed public perception with calculated precision. His team operated as an extension of his personality, loud, confident, and unwavering in their belief in their own superiority. When Maya arrived with her quiet approach and data-driven methodology, Thompson perceived an implicit challenge to his established system. Her presence suggested there might be better ways to conduct intelligence operations than his carefully constructed model. Rather than incorporate new perspectives, he moved to eliminate the perceived threat. The humiliation tactics Thompson employed were textbook examples of professional sabotage. He began by questioning Maya's analytical methods. During briefings, using his seniority to create doubt about her conclusions. When direct criticism failed to drive her away, he escalated to exclusion, accidentally failing to include her in crucial planning sessions or forgetting to share updated intelligence reports. His inner circle followed his lead, creating practical obstacles at every turn. Equipment Maya requisitioned would mysteriously become unavailable. Workstations she used would develop technical problems immediately after her shift. Training sessions she registered for would suddenly have reached capacity when she arrived. The systematic isolation spread beyond Thompson's immediate influence. Other analysts, seeing how Thompson's favor could advance their careers, distanced themselves from Maya. Invitations to informal gatherings stopped. Conversations would halt when she entered rooms. Collaborative projects became solo assignments. Most painful were the whispered comments that reached her ears, speculation about diversity promotions and special treatment, questions about her qualifications and background, suggestions that she had earned her position through means other than merit. Each rumor chipped away at the professional reputation she had worked so hard to build. Captain Andrea Mitchell, one of the few women in a comparable position, offered what limited support she could without jeopardizing her own standing. "It's not personal," Mitchell explained during a rare private conversation in the female officers' quarters. "You represent something threatening to them, proof that their way isn't the only way, or even necessarily the best way. That's terrifying to men who've built their identity around being the smartest person in the room." "Does it ever get better?" Maya asked, the weight of constant vigilance evident in her voice. Mitchell's laugh held no humor. "Not really. You either find allies powerful enough to shield you, develop such exceptional skills they can't ignore, or you transfer somewhere else and hope for a better culture." "Colonel Winters never mentioned this part," Maya said quietly. "She wouldn't have," Mitchell replied. "Elaine was a force of nature. People either got out of her way or got swept along. You're different, quieter. That makes you an easier target." The conversation offered context but little comfort. Maya realized she would find no external rescue from the situation. Any change would have to come from within. That night, she began systematically documenting every incident of exclusion and undermining, creating a detailed record of the pattern. Not to file complaints, but to understand the shape of what she faced. The analytical part of her mind approached the problem like any intelligence challenge, identifying patterns, vulnerabilities, and potential countermeasures. Thompson's tactics, while emotionally effective, followed predictable cycles. His confidence relied heavily on public perception and hierarchical advantage. Most importantly, he had never faced serious challenge to his analytical supremacy. His position had become comfortable, his methods unchallenged. Maya's strategy emerged not as confrontation, but as quiet excellence. She would continue performing her duties with precision, documenting her methodologies carefully, and building a record that would speak for itself when opportunity arose. She would neither complain publicly nor engage with provocations that might paint her as emotional or unstable. "Let them underestimate you," Colonel Winters had told her years ago during a training exercise. "When people dismiss you, they stop. Watching carefully, that's your advantage." The approach required immense psychological fortitude. Each day brought new challenges to her resolve: exclusion from critical briefings, public questioning of her assessments, isolation from team cohesion. Thompson seemed to take personal satisfaction in finding new ways to demonstrate her supposed inadequacy. During one particularly difficult week, he assigned her to analyze outdated intelligence deliberately, then criticize her conclusions in front of visiting officers from regional command. When she attempted to explain the discrepancy, he cut her off mid-sentence. "This is exactly the problem with rushing people through training," he told the visitors. "Basic analytical protocols get missed." The visitors had nodded sympathetically, accepting his assessment without question. Maya had maintained her composure throughout, but later that evening found herself sitting in her quarters. Colonel Winters' challenge coin clutched so tightly in her hand that it left an imprint on her palm. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered to the empty room. The following morning, a small package arrived with her name on it. No sender indicated, just a plain brown envelope passed along by the mail clerk. Inside she found a single flash drive and a note in handwriting she recognized immediately. "For when you need perspective, I.M. Captain Mitchell had taken an enormous professional risk." The drive contained performance reviews and analytical assessments from Thompson's early career, documents showing his own struggles with terrain analysis and targeting precision, evaluations noting his overconfidence and resistance to methodological improvements. Most revealing were comparison metrics showing That while Thompson excelled at leadership and presentation, his actual analytical accuracy ranked significantly lower than he claimed publicly. The information provided no immediate tactical advantage, but offered something perhaps more valuable: confirmation that Thompson's behavior stemmed from insecurity rather than superior knowledge. His aggression toward Maya wasn't because he saw fundamental flaws in her work, but because he recognized strengths he himself lacked. Armed with this understanding, Maya's approach shifted subtly. Rather than trying to avoid Thompson's criticism, she began methodically demonstrating her capabilities in ways difficult to dismiss. When excluded from briefings, she would submit detailed analytical assessments afterwards, highlighting elements others had missed. When denied access to new intelligence, she would extract more value from available data than anyone thought possible. This quiet persistence didn't immediately change her situation, but it did begin creating a record visible to those paying attention. Junior analysts occasionally sought her input when facing challenging terrain assessments. Technical specialists began routing certain analyses through her station before finalizing reports. A few senior officers noted the precision of her work when it crossed their desks. Thompson, sensing this gradual shift, intensified his efforts to undermine her. The Princess nickname spread throughout the operations center. Training simulations were rigged to place her at disadvantage. Resource allocations for her projects were repeatedly cut or delayed. The message remained consistent: she didn't belong in tactical intelligence. The pressure might have eventually succeeded had Colonel Harrington not observed Maya working late one evening after a particularly brutal day of exclusion and humiliation. The base commander had returned unexpectedly from a meeting to find her alone in the operations center, meticulously analyzing terrain features from recent surveillance imagery. "Burning the midnight oil, Lieutenant?" he asked, causing her to jump slightly. "Just reviewing some anomalies I noticed, sir," she replied, quickly standing at attention. Harrington waved her back to her seat. "Show me." For the next 20 minutes, Maya walked the colonel through her analysis, patterns in recent enemy movements that suggested a change in transport protocols, subtle terrain features being utilized for concealment, mathematical inconsistencies in reported convoy, speeds that indicated potential deception. "Why haven't I seen this in the daily briefings?" Harrington asked when she finished. Maya hesitated, unwilling to directly criticize her superior officer. "My findings are preliminary, sir. I wanted more supporting data before presenting formal conclusions." Harrington studied her for a moment. "How long have you been tracking these patterns, Lieutenant?" 3 weeks, sir. "And you've discussed this with Major Thompson?" Another hesitation. "I've submitted my observations through appropriate channels, sir." The colonel's expression revealed nothing, but he nodded slowly. "I see. Continue your analysis, Lieutenant. I'd be interested in your complete assessment when you have it." That brief interaction changed nothing immediately, but it opened a thin crack in the wall Thompson had built around her. Colonel Harrington began occasionally stopping by her workstation during rounds, asking brief questions about her current projects. Her analytical notes, previously ignored, started receiving response acknowledgments. Small changes, but significant, in their implication that someone was finally seeing her work. Thompson noticed these developments with growing concern. His attempts to isolate Maya had been largely successful, but even small recognition from the base commander threatened the Kiev narrative he had carefully constructed. His response was to create a situation where her failure would be both public and undeniable. Operation Shadow Strike became his chosen battlefield. When Maya found herself unexpectedly assigned to the high-priority mission, she recognized both the opportunity and the trap it represented. Success would establish her credibility beyond Thompson's ability to undermine. Failure would vindicate his campaign against her and likely end her career in tactical intelligence. The stakes couldn't have been higher. In the days before the Operation Maya retreated into intensive preparation. She requested historical satellite imagery of the target area, studying seasonal changes in terrain features and vegetation patterns that might affect visibility or movement. She reviewed weather data for the region, calculating how wind patterns in mountain valleys would impact both surveillance capabilities and strike accuracy. She studied previous operations in similar terrain, identifying common points of failure and success factors. Each night after her regular duties, she would spend hours in her quarters running mental simulations, visualizing different scenarios, calculating coordinate adjustments for various contingencies, rehearsing rapid analysis protocols. Sleep became a luxury as Operation Day approached, but her mind remained sharp, focused by the knowledge that this might be her only chance to prove her capabilities. The night before Operation Shadow Strike, Maya sat alone on her bunk, Colonel Winter's challenge coin moving through her fingers as she contemplated what lay ahead. On her desk sat a half-written request for transfer, her contingency plan if tomorrow went poorly. The document represented an admission of defeat she wasn't ready to accept, but practical necessity demanded preparation for all outcomes. What would you do? She asked the empty room, imagining Colonel Winter's response. The answer came not in imagined words but in memory. Winter standing before a tactical display during a particularly challenging operation, calmly recalculating targeting coordinates while chaos erupted around her. The older woman's focus had never wavered, her confidence in her own analysis absolute despite senior officers questioning her conclusions. Maya tucked the transfer request into her desk drawer. Whatever tomorrow brought, she would face it with the same calm precision her mentor had demonstrated. Thompson and his campaign of humiliation faded from her thoughts as she turned her full attention to the mission parameters, running through terrain calculations one final time before allowing herself 3 hours of sleep. The morning of Operation Shadow Strike arrived with the crystalline clarity that follows complete preparation. As Maya took her position in the operations center, the anxiety that had accompanied her throughout her time at FOB Sentinel was notably absent. In its place was a steady readiness, the mental state Colonel Winters had called analytical focus. Thompson's attempts at intimidation before the mission briefing registered, but didn't penetrate this calm. His warnings about staying within established protocols, his reminder that lives depended on following his lead, all washed over her without effect. Her attention remained fixed on the mission itself, on the terrain data streaming to her station, on the mathematical patterns emerging from surveillance reports. When the operation began and the unexpected development of split convoys emerged, Maya's preparation provided immediate advantage. While others reacted with confusion to the tactical change, she had already anticipated this possibility and prepared analytical frameworks for multiple scenarios. The patterns she had been quietly tracking for weeks suddenly provided critical context for understanding the enemy's movement. Her decision to challenge Thompson's assessment came not from desire for vindication, but from absolute certainty in her analysis. The evidence before her told a clear story for those who knew how to read the subtle language of terrain and movement. When she transmitted her alternative targeting coordinates, the numbers flowed from complete confidence in her own calculations. The successful outcome of Operation Shadow Strike represented more than professional validation. It was the culmination of years of specialized training, months of persistent work against systematic opposition, and a lifetime of believing that precision matters more than perception. In those few critical minutes when her coordinates guided the successful strike, Maya Rodriguez became fully the intelligence officer Colonel Winters had always believed she could be. The acknowledgement that followed, Colonel Harrington's public recognition, the team's newfound respect, Thompson's reluctant admission of her capabilities, changed her external circumstances dramatically. But perhaps more significant was the internal shift, the final shedding of doubt about her place in tactical intelligence, the certainty that her analytical approach had genuine value. the confidence that came from trusting her own judgment when it mattered most. In that moment of quiet triumph, as she methodically completed her mission documentation, while celebration erupted around her, Maya felt Colonel Winter's presence more strongly than at any time since her death. Not as grief or memory, but as continuation, the passing of analytical tradition from mentor to student, the fulfillment of potential recognized long before it fully emerged. Lieutenant Rodriguez, Harrington began after introductions. General Richards and Colonel Barrett have been reviewing our recent operational successes. They're particularly interested in the analytical methodologies you've implemented. General Richards, a career intelligence officer with a reputation for driving innovation, studied Maya with open curiosity. Your terrain analysis protocols produced exceptional results during Operation Shadow Strike. We're interested in exploring wider application of your approach. Maya maintained her professional composure despite her surprise. Thank you, sir. The methodology builds on established techniques with some adaptations for complex terrain. Those adaptations made the critical difference, Colonel Barrett observed. We've reviewed the mission data extensively. Conventional analysis would have missed the deception pattern entirely. General Richards leaned forward slightly. We're establishing a new tactical intelligence enhancement program at regional headquarters. The objective is to develop advanced analytical frameworks for complex terrain operations and train select personnel in their application. We'd like you to lead the program development. The offer stunned Maya into momentary silence. Regional headquarters represented a significant step up from base-level operations, broader responsibility, greater resources, increased visibility throughout the intelligence community. Leading program development would mean creating training protocols that could potentially shape intelligence operations across multiple theaters. Colonel Harrington smiled slightly at her surprise. It's an exceptional opportunity, Lieutenant. Your analytical innovations would reach far beyond a single unit or operation. Maya gathered her thoughts before responding. I'm honored by the consideration, sir. May I ask about the program's implementation timeline and structure? The question seemed to please General Richards. Thoughtful inquiry before acceptance. Exactly the analytical mindset we need. He outlined the program parameters, 6 months of development work at regional headquarters, followed by implementation across selected forward operating bases, with Maya serving as both developer and lead instructor. We're not looking to pull you permanently from operational roles, Colonel Barrett added. Once the program is established, you would return to tactical duties with periodic involvement in ongoing training. Your field experience is valuable. We don't want to lose that practical perspective. The offer presented both tremendous opportunity and significant challenges. Developing a formalized version of her analytical approach would require distilling intuitive processes into teachable frameworks. Training others would demand communication skills Maya had never needed to develop. The visibility would place her work under scrutiny from intelligence officers throughout the region, many with far more experience and rank. May I have 24 hours to consider, sir? She requested. General Richards nodded approvingly. Careful deliberation rather than impulsive decision. Take the time you need, Lieutenant. We'll expect your response tomorrow. After the meeting concluded, Maya sought solitude to process the unexpected offer. She found herself in the base's small memorial garden, sitting on a stone bench near the plaque bearing Colonel Winter's name. The space provided rare privacy in the crowded forward operating base, a place for reflection amid constant activity. The opportunity aligned perfectly with her professional aspirations. Developing standardized analytical protocols would formalize the approaches Colonel Winters had taught her, creating a lasting impact on intelligence operations. The position would utilize her strongest skills while challenging her to grow in new directions. From a career perspective, the decision required no deliberation. Yet hesitation persisted. Maya had just begun establishing effective working relationships within the Forward Sentinel intelligence unit. The transformation following Operation Shadow Strike remained fragile, the new collaborative culture still forming. Her departure might allow reversion to previous patterns, particularly with Thompson still serving as senior intelligence officer, despite his evolving perspective. More personally, accepting the position meant stepping into precisely the kind of visibility she had always avoided. Maya had built her career on quiet competence rather than public leadership, on analytical excellence rather than organizational influence. The program development role would require her to advocate for her methodologies, to persuade resistant officers, to train others in approaches that had previously been her private advantage. As evening approached, Maya's deliberation was interrupted by approaching footsteps. She looked up to find Thompson standing nearby, hesitation evident in his posture. "May I join you?" he asked, unusually deferential. Maya nodded, moving slightly to make space on the bench. Thompson sat, maintaining a respectful distance. "I heard about Regional Command's offer," he said after a moment of silence. "Word travels quickly on small bases." Maya nodded but offered no response, uncertain of his purpose in seeking her out. Thompson seemed to struggle with his next words. "I want to be clear about something. If you're considering declining because of concerns about the unit's functioning in your absence, don't." She looked at him with genuine surprise. "I know what you must think of me," he continued, discomfort evident in his voice. "My behavior toward you was unprofessional and unwarranted. I perceived your different approach as criticism of methods I'd spent years developing. I responded by trying to force you out rather than considering what your perspective might offer." The admission clearly cost him considerable pride. Maya remained silent, allowing him to continue without interruption. "Operation Shadow Strike changed things, not just because you were right and I was wrong, but because it demonstrated the cost of dismissing analytical approaches just because they don't match established protocols." He met her eyes directly. "The unit will continue implementing your methodologies if you accept the regional command position. I'll ensure that happens." The commitment represented significant personal growth from an officer who had spent months attempting to undermine her. Maya studied him, looking for signs of insincerity or political calculation, but found only uncomfortable honesty. "Why the change?" she asked finally. Thompson considered the question carefully before answering. "When I started in intelligence, I believed certainty was the most important quality an analyst could project. Never show doubt, never admit limitations, never acknowledge alternative approaches. It worked. I advanced quickly, built a reputation, gained influence." He gestured toward the operations center visible across the base. "But watching you these past weeks, seeing how you maintain precision without requiring dominance, how you collaborate without surrendering expertise, how you lead without demanding acknowledgement, it's forced me to reconsider some fundamental assumptions about effective intelligence work." The admission carried no expectation of forgiveness or reconciliation, just professional acknowledgement of changed perspective. Maya found herself respecting the difficult self-reflection it represented. "The regional command position is a significant opportunity," Thompson added. "Your analytical frameworks deserve wider implementation. I wouldn't want my past behavior to factor into your decision." As he stood to leave, Maya spoke. "Major Thompson." He paused, turning back toward her. "Thank you for your candor." He nodded once, accepting the acknowledgement without presuming more, then continued toward the operations center. The interaction provided unexpected clarity. Whatever her decision about the regional command offer, it should be based on professional considerations rather than concerns about unfinished business at Forward Sentinel. The transformation she had inadvertently begun would continue regardless of her presence. That evening, Maya called her father for the first time since arriving at Forward Operating Base Sentinel. The connection crackled with distance and encryption protocols, but his voice came through clearly, warm with affection despite the technological barriers. "Maya, it's been too long. How are you, Majida?" The familiar term of endearment. "Little daughter," brought unexpected emotion. Maya found herself explaining the regional command offer in detail, describing both the professional opportunity and her hesitations about the public role it would require. Her father listened without interruption until she finished. "You know what this reminds me of?" he asked finally. "Your first national mathematics competition when you were 12. You qualified easily but didn't want to attend because it meant standing at a blackboard while people watched you work." Maya smiled at the memory. "I threw up the morning of the competition, but you went anyway," her father reminded her. "And you placed second against students 3 years older. Do you remember what I told you afterward? That the anxiety never disappears," she recalled. "You just learn to make room for it while doing what needs to be done." "Exactly," he confirmed. "Your mother and I have watched you create that space your entire life, making room for discomfort while pursuing excellence. This is no different." His confidence settled something within her. By morning, her decision was clear. The regional command position represented not just professional advancement but meaningful impact. The chance to institutionalize analytical approaches that could save lives and improve operational outcomes across multiple theaters. When she met with General Richards and Colonel Barrett to deliver her acceptance, Maya added one condition: that Captain Andrea Mitchell be assigned as program co-developer. The request surprised the officers but faced no objection once Maya explained Mitchell's complementary expertise and the value of diverse perspectives in program development. News of her acceptance spread quickly throughout the base. Junior analysts expressed both congratulations and disappointment at losing her direct mentorship. Technical specialists requested final consultations on ongoing projects. Colonel Harrington arranged a small ceremony recognizing her contributions to FOB Sentinel's intelligence operations. Most meaningful was Thompson's response, a handwritten note delivered to her quarters the evening before her departure. It contained no flowery sentiments or excessive apologies, just a straightforward professional acknowledgement. "Your analytical frameworks have improved our operational capabilities significantly. I've learned more from our brief collaboration than I initially allowed myself to recognize. The Regional Command Program will benefit from your precision and integrity." The note concluded with something unexpected, a personal recommendation for Maya to connect with Colonel Sarah Levine at regional headquarters. "She was a close colleague of Elaine Winters," Thompson wrote. "She may have insights about the analytical traditions you're carrying forward." The reference to her mentor reminded Maya of the journey that had brought her to this point, from Colonel Winters' initial recognition of her potential through the challenges at FOB Sentinel to the unexpected opportunity ahead. The path had not been direct or easy, but each step had contributed to her development as both an analyst and a leader. On her final morning at Forward Operating Base Sentinel, Maya visited the memorial plaque one last time. Touching Colonel Winters' name gently, she made a silent promise to extend her mentor's legacy through the program she would develop, creating not just improved analytical protocols, but a more collaborative intelligence culture that valued precision over politics, expertise over authority, results over appearances. As she prepared to board the transport that would take her to regional headquarters, Maya caught sight of a group of junior analysts watching from across the tarmac. Among them was a young woman who had recently arrived at the base, quiet, technically skilled, frequently overlooked in briefings. Something in her attentive posture reminded Maya of herself months earlier. Making a sudden decision, Maya crossed to the group. Addressing the young analyst directly, she removed Colonel Winters' challenge coin from her pocket and pressed it into the surprised woman's hand. "For when precision matters most," Maya said quietly, "remember that the quietest voice sometimes carries the most crucial information. The young woman's expression, a mixture of surprise and dawning confidence, stayed with Maya as the transport lifted off, carrying her toward new challenges and expanded influence. The cycle would continue, quiet excellence recognized and developed, analytical traditions passed forward, precision prevailing over personality. In that moment of transition, Maya Rodriguez fully understood what Colonel Winters had tried to teach her years ago, that true leadership in intelligence work isn't about claiming credit or demanding attention, but about creating conditions where accuracy flourishes and lives are saved through meticulous analysis rather than dramatic action. The transport banked eastward toward regional headquarters, leaving Forward Operating Base Sentinel behind. Maya opened her tablet and began making notes for the program development ahead, already focused on the next mission, the next challenge, the next opportunity to demonstrate that sometimes the most devastating weapon in military operations isn't firepower but the quiet precision of coordinates calculated by someone everyone underestimated. Regional headquarters operated at a different rhythm than Forward Operating Base Sentinel. The sprawling complex housed intelligence operations for 3 countries, coordinating information from dozens of forward positions and processing data from multiple surveillance platforms. Here, the pace was less frantic but more relentless, a constant flow of analysis, assessment, and strategic planning that never truly paused. Maya arrived during the transition between night and morning, shifts when the headquarters hummed with the energy of handovers and fresh personnel. As she stepped from the transport, a young lieutenant approached with crisp efficiency. "Lieutenant Rodriguez?" "I'm Lieutenant Cooper. General Richards asked me to escort you to your quarters. Your security clearance has been processed, and orientation begins at 08:00 tomorrow." The formal welcome contrasted sharply with her arrival at Forward Sentinel months earlier, where she had been left to find her own way with minimal direction. As they walked through the complex, Maya noted the differences in both facility and atmosphere: hardened structures instead of temporary buildings, specialized equipment visible through doorways, analysts moving with the focused intensity of people whose work directly influenced strategic decisions. Her assigned quarters reflected her new status, a private room rather than shared barracks, with a small desk and secure communications terminal. On the desk sat a welcome packet and a handwritten note from General Richards. "We've arranged a meeting with the program development team at 1300 tomorrow. Until then, settle in and familiarize yourself with the facility. Your expertise is eagerly anticipated." The acknowledgement of her value before she had demonstrated any results represented a stark departure from her previous experience. Maya placed her few belongings in the standard issue dresser, changed into fresh uniform, and decided to explore the intelligence center rather than rest. Understanding the operational environment would provide context for the program she would develop. The main analysis hub occupied the center of the complex, a vast room filled with workstations, large displays, and specialized systems for processing various intelligence types. Analysts moved between stations with purpose, their conversations focused and technical. Maya observed from the periphery, noting the workflows and interaction patterns that would influence her program implementation. "Impressive, isn't it?" came a voice beside her. Maya turned to find a woman in her late 50s wearing colonel's insignia, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun. "The first time I saw this room, I spent an hour just watching the information flow." "It's certainly different from forward base operations," Maya acknowledged. The woman extended her hand. "Colonel Sarah Levine, Strategic Analysis Division. You must be Lieutenant Rodriguez. I was told to expect you." Maya recognized the name immediately from Thompson's note. "Major Thompson mentioned you might have insights about Colonel Winters' analytical traditions." A smile warmed Levine's expression. "Elaine and I served together for nearly 20 years. She mentioned you in our last conversation, said you." We're applying mathematical principles to terrain analysis in ways she'd never considered. She gestured toward a nearby hallway. My office is more suitable for that discussion, if you have time. Colonel Levine's office reflected her senior status, spacious enough for a small conference table in addition to her desk. Walls lined with topographical maps and framed commendations. She directed Maya to a chair and took the one beside it, rather than establishing hierarchical distance behind her desk. So you're the officer who identified the convoy deception during Operation Shadow Strike, Levine began. That analysis has circulated widely as an example of exceptional terrain reading. Maya maintained her professional composure despite the unexpected recognition. The terrain provided distinctive indicators once properly analyzed. Typical. Winter's protégé response, Levine noted with appreciation. She always emphasized letting results speak rather than claiming personal brilliance. She studied Maya with experienced eyes. Thompson's recommendation surprised me. You two have an interesting history from what I've heard. The comment contained no judgment, just professional observation. Maya chose her response carefully. Initial differences in analytical approach created friction. Recent operations demonstrated the value of methodological diversity. Levine laughed softly. Diplomatic phrasing for what I understand was systematic. Undermining followed by reluctant recognition. Thompson has a reputation for territorial behavior with officers he perceives as threatening his authority. Your success must have been undeniable to change that dynamic. People can evolve when outcomes matter more than ego, Maya offered. Some people, Levine corrected. Others entrench further when challenged. Your program will face both types. Officers who embrace analytical innovation and those who resist any change to established protocols. The observation cut to the heart of Maya's primary concern about the new assignment. How did Colonel Winters manage that resistance when implementing new methodologies? Levine's expression softened at the mention of her former colleague. Elaine understood that intelligence officers respond to proven results, not theoretical improvements. She never pushed for wholesale adoption of new methods. Instead, she demonstrated their effectiveness in specific operations, built evidence of improved outcomes, and allowed success to create demand for her approach. The strategy aligned perfectly with Maya's experience at FOB Sentinel, where her analytical methods gained acceptance only after demonstrating decisive operational value. Practical application before institutional implementation, she summarized. Exactly, Levine confirmed. Which is why I suggested to General Richards that your program development include ongoing operational involvement rather than pure instructional design. Analysts need to see your methods working in real time, not just presented as theoretical frameworks. Maya's surprise must have shown as Levine smiled. Yes, the program structure reflects my input. Elaine would have wanted her methodological legacy implemented effectively. That means keeping you connected to actual operations while you develop training protocols. The conversation shifted to specific aspects of the tactical intelligence. Enhancement program, resources available, personnel assigned, expected deliverables. Levine provided context about regional operations that would influence program development, identifying particular terrain challenges that could benefit from Maya's analytical approach. As their discussion concluded, Levine hesitated briefly before speaking again. Lieutenant Rodriguez, intelligence work creates few tangible legacies. Our successes remain classified. Our innovations are rarely credited. Our impact is measured in negatives, attacks that didn't happen, casualties that weren't sustained. Elaine understood this reality, but believed analytical methodology could provide something lasting, approaches that save lives long after we've moved on. She opened her desk drawer and removed a small leather-bound notebook. Elaine left this with me before her final deployment, asking me to pass it to the right person at the right time. It contains her notes on analytical frameworks she never formalized, approaches she was still developing when she died. I believe she would want you to have it. The unexpected gift rendered Maya momentarily speechless. Colonel Winter's private analytical notes represented both professional treasure and personal connection, insights from the mentor whose guidance had shaped her career. Thank you, she managed finally. I'll ensure her methodologies inform the program development. Levine nodded approvingly. That's precisely what she would have wanted. Now you should rest before tomorrow's meetings. Program development is a marathon, not a sprint. Maya returned to her quarters with Colonel Winter's notebook, spending hours reviewing the handwritten notes and diagrams. The pages revealed analytical approaches her mentor had been exploring before her death, pattern recognition techniques for mountain terrain, mathematical models for predicting concealment areas, systematic methods for distinguishing natural variations from deliberate camouflage. Some concepts Maya had learned directly during their time together. Others represented new directions she had never encountered. By morning, she had filled several pages of her own notebook with implementation ideas and training concepts. The Tactical Intelligence Enhancement Program took clearer shape in her mind, not just formalization of her own methods, but integration with Colonel Winter's unrealized innovations, creating a comprehensive analytical framework that honored her mentor's legacy while advancing intelligence capabilities. When Maya entered the conference room for her first program development meeting, she found not just General Richards and Colonel Barrett waiting, but also a team of 6 specialists representing different intelligence disciplines. The general made introductions before addressing Maya directly. Lieutenant Rodriguez, we've assembled this team to support your program development. Each member brings expertise in different aspects of intelligence analysis, satellite imagery, signal interpretation, human intelligence integration, and operational implementation. They're here to ensure your terrain analysis methodology interfaces effectively with existing systems. The assembled specialists represented significant institutional resources, experienced officers with technical expertise, and operational credibility. Their assignment to her program indicated serious commitment from regional command, far beyond what Maya had anticipated. Colonel Barrett outlined the program parameters. You have 4 months for development, followed by 2 months of initial implementation at selected forward bases. We expect a graduated training protocol suitable for different operational environments, with emphasis on complex terrain challenges. Captain Mitchell will join you next week to assist with development. General Richards added, while program development is your primary responsibility, Colonel Levine has suggested maintaining your operational involvement to demonstrate methodology effectiveness. You'll have access to live intelligence feeds and can participate in analysis for ongoing operations when appropriate. The scope exceeded Maya's expectations, presenting both tremendous opportunity and significant challenges. Developing formalized versions of intuitive analytical processes would require systematic breakdown of complex methods. Creating training protocols for diverse intelligence officers would demand clear communication of mathematical concepts. Maintaining operational involvement while leading program development would stretch her capacity for sustained focus. As the meeting progressed into specific implementation questions, Maya noted the team's professional respect despite her junior rank. Her demonstrated results during Operation Shadow Strike had established credibility that outweighed hierarchical considerations. When she outlined her initial concept for the program structure, experienced intelligence officers twice her age took notes and asked thoughtful questions rather than offering immediate critiques. This professional respect extended beyond the development team to the broader regional headquarters environment. Unlike FOB Sentinel, where she had encountered systematic exclusion, the regional intelligence community welcomed her analytical perspective. Senior officers sought her input on terrain assessments for planned operations. Technical specialists requested her guidance on improving surveillance positioning. Training officers invited her to observe current protocols to identify improvement opportunities. The contrast reminded Maya of something Colonel Winters had told her years earlier. In intelligence work, meaningful respect comes from demonstrated capability, not assigned authority. Once you prove your analytical value, rank becomes secondary to results. That principle became increasingly evident as Maya settled into her role at regional headquarters. Despite her junior rank, her analytical contributions received serious consideration in operational planning. Her terrain assessments frequently altered surveillance positioning or targeting approaches. Her mathematical models for identifying deception patterns were implemented in ongoing operations with significant success. When Captain Mitchell arrived the following week, she noted this dynamic immediately. "Quite a change from Thompson's kingdom," she observed during their first working session. "No one here seems particularly concerned that you're outshining officers with twice your experience." Maya continued reviewing satellite imagery as she responded. "Different organizational culture. Results matter more than hierarchy here." "It's more than that," Mitchell countered. "You've established a reputation that transcends rank. People throughout regional operations are talking about your analytical approach. They're calling it the Rodriguez method. Have you heard that term?" Maya looked up, genuinely surprised. "That's unnecessary personalization of standard terrain analysis principles." Mitchell laughed. "And that response is exactly why. People respect you. Anyone else would be leveraging that recognition for promotion or influence. You just keep focusing on analytical precision." The conversation highlighted an uncomfortable reality. Maya's work was attracting attention beyond her immediate operational environment. Her analytical framework, originally developed for personal effectiveness, was becoming associated with her name throughout regional intelligence communities. This recognition created both professional opportunity and personal discomfort for her. Someone who had always preferred quiet competence to public acknowledgement. As program development progressed, this tension intensified. Maya's analytical approaches repeatedly demonstrated exceptional effectiveness in ongoing operations. A surveillance positioning model she developed identified a previously undetected insurgent supply route through complex mountain terrain. A deception detection framework she implemented uncovered a sophisticated enemy misinformation campaign that had confused intelligence assessment for months. A target verification protocol she created prevented a potentially catastrophic misidentification during a high-priority operation. Each success increased interest in the Tactical Intelligence Enhancement Program, with forward operating bases requesting priority inclusion in the initial implementation phase. Intelligence officers throughout the region sought preview access to her methodologies. Senior commanders inquired about accelerating the training timeline to address specific operational challenges. This growing attention created implementation pressure, but also provided essential validation. The program wasn't advancing because of institutional mandate or hierarchical authority, but because operational results demonstrated its value. Intelligence officers wanted Maya's analytical frameworks because they worked, not because someone ordered their adoption. Colonel Levine observed this organic acceptance during a progress review midway through the development phase. "You've achieved something remarkable, Lieutenant." Intelligence officers are notoriously resistant to methodological change. They find approaches that work and stick with them, regardless of potential improvements. Yet they're actively seeking your analytical frameworks before formal implementation. Maya attributed this success to practical demonstration rather than theoretical persuasion. They've seen the operational outcomes. Results speak more convincingly than presentations. "That's true," Levine acknowledged, "but don't underestimate the impact of your implementation approach. You've consistently emphasized improving existing methods rather than replacing them. enhancing current capabilities rather than criticizing established protocols. That collaborative posture matters to experienced analysts who've invested years in developing their techniques. The observation highlighted Maya's unconscious strategy, building bridges between her innovative approaches and traditional methods rather than creating competitive comparison. This integration philosophy became central to the program development, with training protocols designed to enhance existing analytical frameworks rather than supplant them entirely. As the program took shape, Maya maintained her operational involvement through a unique arrangement, spending mornings on program development and afternoons providing analytical support for active operations. This dual role kept her methodologies grounded in practical application while demonstrating their effectiveness in real-time scenarios. During one such analytical session, Maya identified a subtle terrain anomaly in surveillance imagery from a mountain region near Forward Sentinel. The irregularity suggested deliberate camouflage rather than natural variation, potentially indicating hidden enemy movement that standard analysis had missed. She forwarded her assessment through appropriate channels, including specific coordinates, for enhanced surveillance. 3 days later, her analysis was confirmed when targeted surveillance revealed a concealed weapons cache at precisely the location she had identified. The discovery prevented a planned attack on coalition forces, saving numerous lives and disrupting enemy operations throughout the sector. When the after-action report reached regional headquarters, it specifically credited Lieutenant Rodriguez's terrain pattern analysis with the critical intelligence breakthrough. This operational validation arrived as the Tactical Intelligence Enhancement Program entered its final development phase, with training protocols nearly complete and implementation. Sites selected, Maya and her team prepared for the transition from development to active training. Captain Mitchell had proven an exceptional partner, translating Maya's mathematical approaches into accessible training materials and developing practical exercises that demonstrated methodological effectiveness. As they finalized the implementation plan, an unexpected communication arrived from Forward Operating Base Sentinel, a request for inclusion in the initial training phase, personally endorsed by Major Thompson. The message acknowledged the base's previous resistance to methodological innovation, but expressed commitment to full implementation of the new analytical frameworks. Maya shared the request with Mitchell, who read it with raised eyebrows. "Well, that's quite an evolution from the officer who tried to drive you out 3 months ago. Think it's genuine?" "Professional necessity creates unexpected adaptations," Maya observed. Thompson recognizes the operational value of these methods, whatever his personal feelings might be. Mitchell studied her with thoughtful assessment. "You know, most people in your position would take satisfaction in making Thompson wait for program access, a small revenge for his previous behavior. Yet I suspect you'll approve the request without hesitation." Maya had already begun drafting the approval. Operational effectiveness matters more than personal history. FOB Sentinel's location makes it strategically valuable for regional implementation. And that, Mitchell noted, is why the Rodriguez method extends beyond analytical techniques to leadership approach. You consistently prioritize mission over ego, results over recognition, improvement over validation. People respond to that integrity. The observation made Maya uncomfortable, as it personalized what she considered simply professional responsibility. The program isn't about individual recognition. It's about improving intelligence capabilities and operational outcomes. True, Mitchell acknowledged, but implementation success depends partly on who delivers the methodologies. Your credibility creates receptivity that institutional mandate never could. That personal element matters whether you're comfortable with it or not. This reality became increasingly apparent as implementation approached. When General Richards reviewed the final program structure, he emphasized Maya's central role in the training phase. Your direct involvement will be critical for acceptance at forward operating bases. Officers need to see the methodology demonstrated by the analyst who developed it, not just taught by assigned instructors. The requirement meant Maya would personally conduct initial training at each implementation site, starting with 3 bases in the first month and expanding to 5 additional locations in the second phase. This travel schedule would take her throughout the region, including a return to Forward Operating Base Sentinel, where her analytical journey had faced its greatest challenges. As the implementation date approached, Maya received an unexpected visit from Colonel Barrett. The senior officer appeared in her office doorway with uncharacteristic informality. "Got a minute, Lieutenant?" he asked, already stepping inside. Maya set aside the training material she'd been reviewing. "Of course, sir." Barrett closed the door before speaking again. "I wanted to give you advance notice of something before it becomes official. The Tactical Intelligence Enhancement program has attracted attention beyond our regional command. Central Intelligence Directorate has requested briefing on your analytical frameworks, with particular interest in the terrain deception detection protocols." The information surprised Maya. Central Intelligence Directorate coordinated operations across multiple theaters, establishing methodological standards for all coalition intelligence units. Their interest suggested potential application far beyond regional implementation. "Additionally," Barrett continued, "your promotion to captain has been approved, effective next month before implementation begins." General Richards felt field training would be more effective with appropriate rank recognition. The promotion represented standard career progression, but accelerated beyond normal timelines. Maya had expected eventual advancement, but not before completing her current assignment. "There's more," Barrett added, seeming slightly uncomfortable with his next disclosure. "Central Intelligence has created a new position, Special Advisor for Analytical Methodology. They've indicated interest in your appointment following program implementation. It would mean relocating to central headquarters and developing analytical frameworks for multi-theater application. The cascade of developments, program expansion, accelerated promotion, potential appointment to a newly created position, represented institutional recognition beyond anything Maya had anticipated. Her analytical approaches, developed for personal effectiveness and refined through operational application, might potentially reshape intelligence methodology across multiple conflict zones. Barrett studied her carefully. Most officers would respond to this news with immediate acceptance. Your expression suggests more complex considerations. Maya organized her thoughts before responding. The program's purpose is improving operational effectiveness, not creating personal advancement opportunities. Implementation success matters more than individual recognition. Precisely why you're the right person for these expanded responsibilities, Barrett observed. Your consistent prioritization of mission over self-advancement creates the credibility needed for methodological change. This isn't about reward. It's about extending effective approaches to save lives across multiple operational environments. The perspective shifted Maya's thinking. If her analytical frameworks could improve intelligence effectiveness beyond regional application, personal comfort with recognition became secondary to operational impact. Colonel Winters would have emphasized the same priority, methodological improvement that saved lives outweighed individual preference for anonymity. As Barrett left, Maya remained at her desk, considering the unexpected trajectory her analytical work had created. From isolated lieutenant facing systematic exclusion to program developer with expanding influence, a transformation driven not by ambition or self-promotion, but by quiet precision and demonstrated effectiveness. She opened Colonel Winters' notebook, finding a passage she had marked during her initial reading. The most powerful analytical innovations often come from unexpected sources: junior officers with fresh perspectives, specialists with unconventional Backgrounds, quiet analysts who see patterns others miss. Our responsibility as intelligence leaders isn't just recognizing these innovations, but creating conditions where they can flourish beyond individual application. The words seem to speak directly to her current situation, the opportunity to extend analytical innovations beyond personal practice to systematic implementation. Whatever discomfort came with increased visibility, the potential operational impact justified the exposure. Maya closed the notebook and returned to finalizing implementation protocols. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, training development, regional travel, institutional navigation. But the fundamental principle remained unchanged: precision mattered more than perception. Analytical integrity outweighed personal recognition. Quiet competence eventually spoke louder than positional authority. As evening approached, Maya stepped outside headquarters to clear her mind before continuing work. The setting sun cast long shadows across the complex, creating stark contrast between illuminated areas and darkened spaces, a visual reminder of intelligence work's fundamental purpose: bringing clarity to obscured realities through methodical analysis and precise calculation. Somewhere across the region, intelligence officers were making critical decisions based on available information, their assessments potentially determining life or death outcomes for deployed forces. Maya's analytical frameworks might improve those assessments, might reveal patterns previously missed, might prevent catastrophic errors through mathematical precision. That possibility, the tangible impact of analytical improvement on operational outcomes, justified whatever personal exposure came with program implementation and expanded responsibilities. Colonel Winters would have understood this calculus perfectly. Individual comfort subordinated to mission effectiveness. Personal preference secondary to operational impact. Maya returned to her office, newly resolved about the implementation phase ahead. Whatever challenges arose, whatever recognition followed, the fundamental purpose remained unchanged: bringing mathematical precision to complex terrain analysis, turning topographical data into actionable intelligence, saving lives through analytical excellence rather than conventional authority. They had called her a rookie until her coordinates took down an enemy convoy. Now they sought her analytical framework for implementation across multiple theaters. The transformation wasn't about personal vindication, but methodological validation. Proof that precision ultimately matters more than perception, that quiet competence eventually speaks louder than confident authority, that seeing patterns others miss can change not just individual operations, but institutional approaches. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.